I'm that bull in the hood. New lamb truck got the bull in the hood. Black and red looking like the bulls hit the hood. 23s, oh, they got the bull sitting good. This game 6, this can't miss. Shooting my shot, wrist hang swish.
What time is it? Game time!
Welcome back, Bulls Nation, to another episode of the Nothing But Bull podcast. I'm your host, Derek, and as always, I'm here with my main man, Just B. Justin, what's going on?
Nothing much, just a lot of angry eating last night. So I don't know if any of you all joined in that same thing.
And of course, Melissa, how's it going?
Good, guys. I actually did go ahead and do the pizza after all the putting the food in the cart and exiting the app. I did it last night. A lot of regrets.
And we have Morris joining us. Morris, how's it going, man?
Pretty good. I wish last night didn't make me just go to bed angry, basically. I didn't angry eat, but angry slept. But I feel semi better.
And if you don't know, Morris is a devoteful Bulls Nation personality on Twitter, runs Bulls Game Day threads, and reminds everybody every day Patrick Williams snatching Jason Tatum's ankles in the UC twice.
Hashtag Jason Tatum's ankles. Yes, I'm keeping that alive for the whole season because it's still beautiful every time I look at the clip. Like, he really broke his ankles like perfectly, cooked them.
Yeah, thank you for continuing to create positive Pat vibes. We need that, especially in the game night.
Yeah, the thing with Pat, I genuinely empathize with him or sympathize with whichever one you want to call, because I can only imagine what it feels like for him at this stage of his career, and he's just trying to come along, get better on the job, and you see the effort he's putting in, and it's happening. And to me, it's just like, I have no way of contacting him or whatever. I just want to put it out there in the world, like, hey man, you got it. You can do these things. Like, you can be the man, basically. At the very base level, the whole bit, like with the Jason Tatum's thing. I just think we collectively as a fan base, we have to continue to be patient with him. Because NBA development, you look at a lot of these players that are coming online now and they're becoming the guy or whatever. It's not like a point A, point B kind of thing. You just don't flip a switch, you become like a superstar. Like, one person I would call out in particular that I've noticed recently, this season, Nick Claxton on the Nets, right? Like, he is a legit center this season. But 2 or 3 seasons ago, you kind of were wondering what were the Nets thinking trading Jared Allen away. That was a legit center, and you see what he does on the Cavs right now. But it's just things like this happen in the league so much, where I feel like fan bases, they kind of overstep their bounds, or they just jumped the gun too soon, wanting to give up on somebody.
Yeah, it's true what you're saying, because for one thing, with this league pass, this is the first time I've actually paid for league pass, so I'm able to actually catch up on a lot of what's going on in the NBA. And as exciting as the NBA is, there's a lot of bad habits that you see in the league, especially with young players who are allowed to, in other circumstances, put up stats. But a lot of those stats are just empty stats. You have a lot of guys who are averaging, career highs in points, doing their thing offensively. From the defensive end, it's a totally different story. I don't know who is playing NBA or who is playing defense in the NBA right now. I can be honest with you, nobody really is playing defense in the NBA. But just not from a defensive standpoint. Offensively, there is just a lot of bad habits that you see that are just festering around the league. And from a fan standpoint, from a casual fan, you might not notice it as much. You might just go to the game and just tune in, just be like, oh, this guy's putting up 20 something points a game. but it's not really affecting winning. And so that's why I was happy last night. Stacey pointed something out with Pat that I thought that a lot of people need to keep in mind. He was like saying how people were criticizing him for not getting a lot of rebounds. And he was saying that Pat is guarding like the best player on the court. You know, he's around the perimeter a lot because all of the great players, or I shouldn't say great players, the seemingly great players or good to seemingly great players play along the wing. And Pat is picking up that defensive assignment regularly, taking a lot of the stress that would be put on a player like Zach LaVine's caliber or DeMar's caliber, you know, something that they would have to carry, even though Zach is doing a lot better defensively, and we've all acknowledged that, but he's not in that position to grab the rebounds that are being filtered to Vooch, who is having a very good year as far as defensive rebounding. And there is like a lot of patience that needs to be displayed by fans. That being said, we need Pat to be a consistent player on a nightly basis. I think everybody can agree with that.
Yeah, it's like he has a good game, and you have the people on Twitter that are praising him, and as soon as he has a bad game, you got the people that are, oh, he's a bust, and they should have traded him. It's like you're not going to have a great game every single night. Nobody does. And it's basically Pat's second year. You got to develop players sometimes in the NBA. So Bulls Nation does need to be a little bit more patient with Pat. I mean, we've seen the flashes. He had 18 and 10 against Atlanta. It was pretty much his best game of the season, other than, you know, snatching Jason Tatum's ankles. So, I mean, he has the tools. He has the potential. He just needs the time to put it all together.
Agree. Yeah, we talk about that all the time. It's just experience. It's going to come with experience. We've seen it. He just needs more time. That's all. And just also getting used to like the offensive scheme too, switching back between like ISO ball back to running some plays here and there, back to ISO ball. It's a lot to get used to. And he's so young. He's 21 years old. And people seem to always forget still that like he barely played last year. So he just needs some time. He's getting there though. The best thing that we can see, the best thing about everything is like that confidence is starting to grow. And hopefully that continues on a consistent trajectory all the way up. But that was the biggest thing, was just him just not being sure of himself and that hesitation. And you don't see it as much as you used to before, but the other stuff will come with time. The execution part of it, it's just getting the mindset right for me. And I think he's getting there. So I'm sticking with that.
Yeah, I think the thing with Pat too, that this is something I notice a lot of times, like just like reading through like on Twitter through the timeline and just seeing like sort of, I guess, both ends of the spectrum of the Pat conversation. There's a nuance that I think gets missed in Pat as a player. And what I mean by that is Pat is playing probably like the most glamorous role on this roster right now in NBA, in like 2023 modern NBA basketball. He's a wing. And like that's to me like the most valuable position right now. And it's not the same thing. Like some of the critiques you'll see, like you see people knock him like the offensive rebounding thing, like, oh, Pat is a 6'7", whatever pound power forward. He should be a power forward. Like the game has evolved so much. Like whatever traditional power forwards used to be, that role really doesn't exist anymore. And you definitely don't have it in the Bulls roster or even in the scheme, because I'm trying not to tee you up too quick, Derek, but like, you know, Billy Steen doesn't really play through bigs consistently. And so like the whole prospect of Pat being the big, I personally have said many times in Twitter or whatever, is I don't really think Pat is a big yet. I think his habits, his default mode on the court is wing. And like that point Stacey brought up last night was like, thank you. Like, I'm glad somebody's finally like starting to hit on that. Like Pat offensively, where you see him, where he's most confident is on the wing. It is on ball on the wing. defensively, he's a switchable defender. And that's where like he can take on a 4 or a 5. But I don't think just because he's a switchable defender, that means you should consider him be on par with like, I don't know, like, I'm not gonna say he's like Anthony Davis or something. Like he is very much a versatile wing, and it's really the ball to me is on the Bulls organizations to actually, if they want him to be a power forward, develop him as such. Put the resources around him where he grows and he continues to develop in that. But also don't hold him back from just being like what he can be right now, which I think is a very effective NBA wing.
Yeah, we said several times like Pat would probably be better off as a 3 and being on the wing, and it's kind of on Bulls management because they constructed this roster where they get brought in DeMar and just automatically push Pat down to power forward when he's really a 3.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that when he got benched, that was the best thing for him. And if it were me, like, I think him come off the bench as DeMar's backup is exactly what he should be doing right now. I appreciate the fact that he gives his effort, and he's done some amazing things in the starting lineup. But long-term development-wise, I think he would probably benefit more if he were developing as DeMar's backup. Because in another season or so, like, the Bulls are going to have to make a decision about what they're doing with DeMar. And if it's possible he gets brought back, that's cool. But you would feel probably a lot more confident about, if you need to move on beyond DeMar, here you have Pat, who's developed in the role for a couple of seasons, had consistent reps, understands fundamentally like what it means to be the 3 in the starting lineup, or just in the roster in general.
Yeah, and the big part of like that again, that goes to management and that goes to Billy. Like we've talked about this several times about this Bulls roster. I don't know if like the Bulls don't necessarily have enough of what they need, because I've seen other teams with less. And we were talking about this last night about how the Miami Heat can, trot out a lineup that doesn't feature, Jimmy Butler or, anybody that you would think would prosper on an NBA roster, and they somehow manage to get it done, get a win. And that's really with having players who are in defined roles, who are comfortable with that role, because from the beginning of their career path in the Heat organization, it has been, determined what their role is going to be. They don't have to step outside of that role. Just do your role to the best possible ability. The one thing that I will say about Pat is that if he is our fourth or fifth option, I don't know that many guys as a 4th or 5th option who are going to pick up the defensive assignments that he's picking up while also shooting like close to 45% from 3. I don't see that happening in the NBA. I would like to see Pat getting more opportunities with the 3. Like Melissa was talking about earlier, just a matter of confidence. There's too many times that I see in the Bulls offense that he does have a shot, and because of the type of player that he is and his abilities within that Bulls scheme, and just like being willing to make that extra pass, he does give it up to other players. But at the same time, he has to understand, I am the one who is shooting a high percentage from 3. So we need you to take those shots and not pass it up to another player. But again, it's like, does he have that defined role of understanding, like, this is what we need you to do coming in? Because from the beginning of the year, I didn't necessarily see that he had a defined role. And like you were mentioning before, with like him sitting out of the offense, I don't know if that was necessarily good for his growth and development or if it was a bad thing. I just know that we weren't seeing the production that we were used to. But it's not just a Pat thing. We've seen other players on this team not have defined roles, go someplace else with a defined role and prosper. We saw it with Kobe. Kobe did not necessarily have a defined role. But now, because Kobe has a defined role, and also with the work ethic that he has, you see him starting to develop some very good habits that are helping this team win. So going forward, I believe that, like you said, Morris, earlier, that Pat is the future of this team, but you got to pick a lane. Is he going to be the power forward of the future, or is he going to be, the second coming of DeMar? Like we got to find that out. And unfortunately, with the way the Bulls are constructed, we got to kind of find that out relatively quick, because there's some looming decisions that are coming up with what are we doing with DeMar? What are we doing with Vooch? Is Lonzo going to come back and be any type of player that we thought that he was going to be? So the Bulls have to find what that is in a short amount of time.
The problem with trying to find that out is we don't have any power forwards to play him at the small forward. So,
That's what it always goes back to the roster construction.
Wait a minute, we do have a power forward. He just doesn't play. So,
ooh.
You've been talking about Marco minutes for the longest time.
He's not a power forward.
I have a guy who can somewhat play that position. I'm just saying, like, an extra body of some type that can come in. Like, I am appreciative of what Derrick Jones Jr. provides for this roster and the type of player that he is. But like you were mentioning, like that power forward position, the center position, a lot of times that gets to be interchangeable in today's NBA. You need to have some other big coming off of your bench besides Andre Drummond, who does not get played for whatever reason. That's a totally different subject. But we need to have some other big on there who can eat into those. I don't want to even say power forward minutes. I just want to say big minutes. So,
like,
I'm not saying that Marco is the answer. I'm not saying that at all.
Like,
but he is on the roster on certain occasions.
Marco is in the sunken place because he's been stuck in the G League for 3 years. I don't consider him on this roster because Billy clearly does not.
Hey, the man was on the bench.
They took him to Paris.
That's what I was. Yeah, that's what we were talking about. Like, at least it was nice they took him to Paris. That was nice. That was the most we see of him representing the Bulls was in Paris.
Yeah, I have to be honest. Like, I pretty routinely question, like, what are we doing with the G League program? What are we doing with the Windy City Bulls? I mean, every team has a G League team at this point, but I just feel like in the NBA at this point, you can name, like, who are like the 2 or 3 teams that actually are using their G League roster as a competitive advantage to get better, to be a contender, to compete. It's the Heat. It's the the Raptors aren't good this season. I mean, they've leveraged their G League in the past, and obviously get to like a title. The Warriors make use of G Leaguers. I just wonder, like, what is the purpose of our G League? Because Warriors last season going win a title with GP2, journeyman G Leaguer, and it's like, why aren't we finding the GP2 out of the Windy City Bulls? Why we keep bouncing Marco and DT back and forth just to give them minutes that seemingly don't translate into the real game?
I think they were kind of like probably forced to have a G League team. So say, hey, we got to win some games here so we can sell some tickets. So Marco, DC, going to Windy City. I don't know. Like, we had Bobo on the G League team. Didn't do anything with him. He's like putting it together now where he's getting minutes. Unfortunately, Justin Lewis got hurt. I was hoping like that would be the guy that we developed in the G League and we would bring him up and actually play him minutes, because he could be a power forward and we have 0.
Yeah, I was hopeful for that.
I mean, and then they took his contract away. still have him around the team, so hopefully they'll offer him a two-way for next season when he's healthy. Had Giannis's brother, and you let him. I think they gave it to Carlik Jones, who we have way too many guards as it is, so that served no purpose. I don't know what the plan is for the Windy City Bulls. It's like they're just there. More money for old man Jerry. It's pretty much the purpose of them.
They got sweet bobbleheads, right?
Yeah, they had better bobbleheads than the actual Bulls. So they put out a DeMar 2 bobblehead from his back-to-back buzzer beaters. They're using all this Bulls like dynasty giveaways to get people there, and the Bulls aren't even using that stuff.
Well, the good thing is that they're entertaining. Like, there's been times this season where I've been on a low in a low spot with this Bulls team, and I was like, well, I need something positive to watch that's related to the Bulls. Let me go check out the G League, and they're entertaining to watch. But like you were saying, Morris, it would be interesting to know. Like, that seems like something that manage would be talking about. Like, what are we going to be doing with this team of ours moving forward? Are we going to be bringing up players, or are they just going to be sitting on the bench? Like, and the weird thing is, and I don't know if it's weird in the sense because we don't hear so much about what's going on with this Bulls team from the front office, but I would think that with the issues that have been swirling around the team, there would have been something that comes out, like, as far as the direction, or just some type of statement from the front office, just to be visible. But you really haven't seen it. It's just like stuff just feels like it's so up in the air this year. I don't know if it's just me. That's just the way I feel with the way things have gone.
I think it's up in the air because they were really hoping that Lonzo would be ready for the season, and doesn't look like he's going to play. So they still really don't know what this roster is because of the way that they constructed it, where it relies so heavily on what Lonzo provides. Because with Lonzo, we were first in the East for like most of last season. But now without him, there's no real point guard out there. So we're struggling at times. We're inconsistent. And we blow 21-point leads because nobody can figure out a way to set the offense up to, stop the bleeding. We have to go to DeMar ISO and let him get some buckets just to keep us in the game, because we've let the rope go because nobody is out there that knows how to run an offense. Because, of course, Billy doesn't know what to call. And I was this close to not having to badmouth Billy on this episode. But then last night happened. And it's like, what are you doing, Billy? I question my self-love because I always listen to his post-game comments. And I'm like, I don't know if I really love myself, because why am I listening to this guy after games like this, where he's like, oh, we were overwhelmed by their pressure. Their intensity was here and ours was up here in the first quarter and theirs went up here. It's like, your job is to manage that. Your job is to calm them down and figure out a game plan that is going to not blow a 21-point lead. You were still up 7 to start the fourth quarter. There's no reason that the Bulls should have lost that game. Yes, they played in pairs. You got to get your body readjusted to being back in the States. You were on a back-to-back. Pacers lost 7 in a row without Halliburton. It should have been 8 in a row last night. But you decide to keep putting the ball in Zach LaVine's hands and having him dribble up the court with a busted finger. And it results in 6 turnovers, 4 in the last 2 minutes of the game. After those first 2, which should have been like, yeah, let's get somebody else to bring the ball up because he's clearly having a problem holding on to the ball. You had Kobe White, who could have brought the ball up. You got Ayo, who could have brought the ball up. Therefore, you let people go and double DeMar, and you try to get something where Zach is just running to the basket. You want to put him in a position like catch and shoot. Kind of use him like Klay Thompson, where he doesn't have to do all that dribbling with his finger taped. But of course, Billy does not know how to do that. So it was just throw it to DeMar, see if he can bail us out again.
Yeah, the thing I don't like, I had the excuse button going for myself. Like, okay, this is the NBA, the modern NBA, where 20-point leads are not safe. Like, if you turn on League Pass, you will see teams routinely lose 20-point leads. And yes, the Bulls did play in Paris and were on a back-to-back the night before. However, where was that issue when the Bulls were building the 20-point lead? Like, if you see like a lead evaporating, and I understand, like, again, leads are not safe, but it's not like the Pacers just suddenly became hot from the 3-point line. Like, the Pacers had 10 3-pointers, the Bulls had 5 3-pointers. At what point did they not understand that Zach just doesn't have it? Maybe let's take that burden. Like, if his hand is bothering him, let's take the burden off of him, like you were saying, Derek, of having to bring the ball up the court and initiate that offense, and put that responsibility in somebody else's hands. And I don't understand why, with one of the last plays in the game, if you were seeing that Zach is struggling and has routinely turned the ball over to the tune of 6 turnovers, why was he the one inbounding the ball in the first place? Like, but like, there should be like, what is the Bulls' go-to? Like, when things are going down, the go-to to me should, let's reestablish ourselves down low with Vooch, and not just like having Vooch just back the ball down, into the paint, but just getting him the touches in the paint so he can distribute that ball around the perimeter like he does very well, especially from his position. But again, it's like, you need somebody who has defined roles, who leads. We were talking before about the front office and like really hoping that Lonzo was going to be healthy, and that was going to be the big push that you were looking for. And my thing is, okay, yeah, that's nice when everything is working okay. What is your counter when you don't have that? What are you going to do? What's the plan if something else comes up that takes that away? I don't know if Billy is that person who has that vision, the foresight to understand, hey, you know what? We have what we were doing with Lonzo, but we got to have something else that we can go to as a counter. The counter to me should be playing through Vooch like they were doing throughout the whole entire game, passing the ball around, getting players involved, because the Pacers did not have an answer for it. And we could talk about, Zach not having it 4 of 14, whatever. My thing is, if you're noticing that your player is struggling, what are you doing to put them in position so that you can mask that struggle? So again, I don't want to lay it all at Billy's feet, but we've kind of seen this movie before play out. We know how it ends. So until they solve the problem of Billy, I think that's another issue that this Bulls team is going to have and continue to have moving forward.
Yeah, I think the thing I would add too, the thing that sort of hung with me, and honestly, like I was going to tweet it in my thread, but I didn't because like I was probably going to get like real hot headed about it. The rotations in that fourth quarter, I think that's what I would question about Billy is like, what were you doing with that? I mean, you look back at the box score. I mean, AC played 11 to 12 minutes and he didn't score a single point. And like AC is a very popular player, I know, in our fan base. There have been some times I like, watching as many games as I've watched, like I question with Billy, like at what point, like there has to be sort of a tipping point where it's like, yes, AC is easily our best defender, but I think there's a limitation to that. So in some of these games, like if you see a team that's like scoring at will basically, and you have AC on there, AC can at least chip in on some scoring to like stem the tide. It's kind of like it becomes like to me like a stubborn thing to like keep him in the game at the expense of potentially like bringing in Pat for a couple minutes. Not to say that Pat needed to close, but Pat only had like 4 minutes in that fourth quarter. And man, could we've used some shooting like last night in that fourth quarter. I mean, Mathurin just starts going off, teeing off on us. And even in the third quarter too, with Miles Turner. It's just Billy, like I appreciate like it seems like in the beginning of the games, Billy's way more flexible with the rotations. But then like when we get into that second half, like it's like an etched in stone thing with him where it's like it's 5 minutes in the third quarter. Let me do the hockey substitution and AC, you're gonna be out there for the next 15 minutes, basically. And it's like when AC can do some things offensively, if he can hit the dimes, if he can hit shots, that's cool. But if he's not scoring, like that's the thing that like I feel like needs a little bit more scrutiny and a little bit more just honest conversation. Like we have AC, great defender. I think AC is at his best when you're pairing him with Alonzo or like a very aggressive, like point of attack tag team defender. When it's just him and we're trying to rely on him to actually orchestrate and point guard, basically, that becomes a liability that I don't think his defense alone overcomes. Personally, I don't care what sort of numbers might say the opposite, but like just my eye test, I think we're reaching a point where, yeah, like, to Justin's point, like we need a point guard, basically. That's kind of where I'm at with the team.
There were just so many things that went wrong. I talk about it all the time too, like the lack of just leadership in general. When things aren't going their way, everybody panics and you just completely forget what they're doing. Like they just forget how to play ball. They forget the fundamentals. They panic. They go to ISO ball all over again and nobody knows what to do. Like they're out of their rhythm and it's game over after that. But we don't really see, with the exception of Alex, and I would like to see that more, but you don't really see anybody really step up and like, let's bring it in. Like we have to focus. We have to recollect ourselves. Like, and of course that's supposed to come from Billy. But we need a leader on the team too, a consistent leader on the team as well. Something that's going to be more vocal. It's just it's the same story every game, unfortunately. Most games that turn out this way. We play one way in the first half and it's beautiful. They're moving the ball and then they go away from it somehow. It's like always the third quarter. Why is it always the third quarter? It's the same thing every time. And that's what's most frustrating is because we know what they can do and they just completely forget. I don't know what it is. And it doesn't seem like we learn from these mistakes game after game. The same ones keep repeating themselves. And so that's why it's so frustrating for the fan base, because we get excited and we're like, okay, cool. We're turning a corner. We can finally put like our worst losses behind us. I think we've learned. And that's how we felt, I think, up until this game. We had a really great stretch. the Paris trip was really nice. It was cool to see them all bonding, and it seemed like they were getting their chemistry, their chemistry right. They were really understanding each other. And we had that nice stretch of games, and then we're right back here. We're right back here all over again, and arguably the worst loss of the season. So I don't know. I don't know. And just like that last, oh my God, the fourth quarter, the last 2 minutes, like we just talked about, like 4 turnovers in like 2 minutes. My face is turning red right now because like, I don't know. I don't understand. I don't understand.
Like, this is my theory. They go in the locker room for halftime, and Billy's like, "Good job, guys. That was working great. They're going to expect us to do that again in the next half. So what we're going to do is give the ball to DeMar." And then the other team's just like, they're just giving the ball to DeMar. Let's just double him. And Billy doesn't change anything else, and that's what happens. Like that last pass where you have Zach as the inbounder, and he's panicking because his focus is solely on DeMar. Like, he does not turn his head. He's not surveying the floor. He's just looking at DeMar. DeMar's not open. So he's like, timeout. And he misses AC wide open under the basket.
Yes.
Clear path to pass the ball to him.
Yeah, I face palmed when that happened.
Like Ariel was on the couch with me. It was way past her bedtime, but she wanted to spend time with me. So I was like, okay, let's watch a little bit of the game. This is the first time I've actually scared Ariel off the couch. So I was like, what are you doing? He's wide open. And she just like jumps up with her hands like this and just like goes right across the house. And I'm like, oh baby, I'm sorry. But I was like, how did you miss that, man? You were so keyed in on just getting it to one guy. And that's like indicative of what we see going on. It's like, oh, panic time. I gotta just do one thing. I can't concentrate on multiple things that are happening around me. And like that play just kind of summed it up, like where the answer was so obvious and everybody in the building and that was watching saw you needed to get the ball to Alex, who was right underneath the basket. And you did not execute a simple play. And one of the things that stood out to me, because we talked about like lineups and everything, and I looked at Kobe's game. Kobe didn't shoot the ball exceptionally well. He's like only 3 of 11. But in certain situations, I feel like Kobe could be a lot better utilized if he's playing more with that starting lineup, where he is not going to be just the main guy off of the bench, but a key piece of the offense within the flow of what's going on in the game. And I looked and I was like, how did Kobe play 23 minutes, but Ayo, who seemingly was not giving us much of anything, like he was competing defensively, but Ayo played 25 minutes. And I'm just like, if you're having trouble with the offensive execution and it's getting stagnant, I would think that you would put more guys who are capable of putting the ball in the basket on the court at the same time. And I don't understand like the way lineups are used and everything. I understand like they're like Kobe was like he was a -8, but that's more has to do with who he's playing with, not necessarily how he's competing offensively and defensively. And there were just so many times where Ayo found the ball and was like, I don't know what to do with this thing. You want me to shoot this 3? I don't feel like I'm comfortable shooting 3s. And it showed. He was 0 for 3 for 3s. Those are the types of things that I wish would be like a little bit more thoughtful. Why is it if Zach is not shooting well, he's 0 for 7 on 3s? Why is it that Pat only got 3 3-point attempts when he's our best 3-point shooter on the team? Like it. And again, I don't want to lay this at like just a young player like Pat or just a young player like Kobe, but there has to be more of a defined purpose of what is going on that basketball court. And we can talk about guys needing to be professional, whatever, but we're also dealing with guys who are coming from organizations that are not known for having great head coaching positions. Vooch came from the Magic. I don't know the head coaches that were on those Magic teams, but they weren't very good. DeMar, he does have a pedigree with working with some very good coaches, but Zach had poor coaching. Kobe has had the bald-headed menace, as Derek likes to bring up many times. You have a lot of these guys who just, like, we're expecting stuff of them that they haven't necessarily had in their young career, that like guidance. And, you know, I hate to keep coming back to, we need to upgrade, not just with the point guard position, but with the head coaching position. But that is something that needs to be discussed, not just with us, but also with management.
I mean, the report came out after the game. They immediately had a players only meeting because Bruce just said,
They had another player.
We all talked. We did all the talking. So that lets me know that either Billy wasn't there or Billy just didn't have anything to say.
Wait, you said they had another players only meeting?
Yes, they had a meeting immediately after the game, and Vooch said, we did all the talking.
As in only the players talk.
Yeah. So
wow.
I don't even think Billy was there. He's probably doing that presser where he's just like raising my blood pressure even higher, saying stupid things like their intensity was here, and then when he, like, come on, man, like what is going on?
I know, like, people on the outside, like, they hear players only meeting, and like people are like, yeah, the players are like, they're holding themselves accountable. Let's be honest, on really good teams, how often do you hear this talk about like players only meeting? And I know they happen, but how often do you think about those Bulls teams in the past? Did you hear a whole bunch about players only meetings, or was it, hey, they looked like they knew exactly what they needed to do because that is something that was drilled in them from the time training camp started? Like, there was no, oh man, we got to get these guys motivated and all of this other stuff. You can have players only meeting, but you have to have like specified instructions and expectations of what you need to do moving forward.
Yeah. I this is something I've said before, and I guess I would caveat it as I'm obviously just I'm just a fan on the outside watching the Bulls games, but I've watched the Bulls for a long time. And the thing that's different with what's going on right now with this roster, with this coaching staff, it just seems like the Bulls lack a offensive system. They just lack principles and things that like you've been saying, just like, what are the roles and responsibilities of this team? You compare it to like a Warriors team right now, or even, if you go back to like the Dynasty. I mean, obviously the Dynasty had the triangle offense, was really like, it more than anything is just Tex Winter saying like, all you guys, like, when we have the ball, we're going to do some actions, but like, these are things that you have to be responsible for if the action doesn't go a certain way. And it's just like, you can kind of see it in the way the Bulls play right now. It's like you might get a couple of like semi-coherent like pick and roll actions with 2 or 3 guys, but like by that third quarter, it's just kind of like it runs out of gas, right? And it's like, okay, it's DeMar's turn, it's Zach's turn, it's Vooch's turn on a good night. And it's like, where is the principles? Where is the reads and the cuts and things that just like look like competitive offense? Is what we had when we did have Alonzo. You just don't see the chemistry this season as consistently as you want to see it on offense.
Yeah. Really need Lonzo. This is pretty much like the answer to this is like I said, it's the way the roster was constructed. They like placed everything on having Lonzo there. And it's like Lonzo never has played a full 82 games in his career. But you chose to build this team to rely on his availability. A lot of people question it from the start, like, I don't know, because he has a history of being injured. And now he's been out for over a year, and we're still here, like, really need Lonzo to get things going for this team. I mean, they got.
But the thing is, though, is like, yeah, they're like, we're banking on Lonzo. But the first plan of action was to go out and seek a head coach. Their first plan of action was to seek out Billy. That's what I am trying to like come to terms with. Like, yeah, I understand. Like, they need Lonzo. Of course, they need what he can bring to this team. But I'm trying to understand what it is from Billy's perspective that they were thinking that he was bringing to this team. Like, because I'm looking at the records, 25 and 22. There's a lot of other coaches that are in the NBA where this could easily be 25 and 22 the other way with other coaches and better. Like we've talked about this before. Like, you put Spo, Pop, I'd even throw Nick, and I know people don't like Nick Nurse. I'd throw Nick Nurse in there. Nick Nurse could have this team at 25 and 22. Like, they've had enough players to get the job done with what they, and I'm not saying like obviously competing for the championship, but they've had enough talent on this roster to win some winnable games. And like you go back and you look at these games that they're losing against teams that they have no business losing against. Like Indiana, how many in a row did you say that Indiana had lost? Was it 6?
7.
7 in a row?
7-game losing streak, right?
And we let McConnell cooked us. TJ
McConnell cooks us. A rookie comes in and like has one of his best games, although, you know, that rookie of theirs, he's a very talented rookie, but he's still a rookie. You know, they're missing their best player, that point guard, Halliburton, who's like coming close to getting into that star level of play. But this is not just one game. Like, this is indicative of other games that we've seen throughout the year where the Bulls lose against a team that is missing several players that are on bad teams where they're missing several players, and they find a way to lose that game. Like, that is not just a roster construction issue. That is a coaching issue. And I don't know how you get around that.
Yeah, speaking of Mathurin cooking us, he had praise for one of the Bulls players who didn't even play.
Was it Dalen?
His college teammate, Dalen.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah, that's his boy.
Said, one thing about him, he never gives up. But you wouldn't know that because Billy never plays him.
Yeah, we haven't seen him on the court actually in meaningful minutes.
We've seen him plenty in the G League.
Yeah, the G League. Where
The
Billy
whole
does not
DT
have
thing,
to coach him.
That's the
yeah,
thing.
it's just a mystery. Like, what is it that's I really want to know, like, what is it that's different about DT versus last season with Ayo, the season before Pat? Like, I thought we were cool with like playing rookies until this season. Apparently, we don't do that anymore.
I
What were you
think
saying?
Pat got played because of injury, right?
It's just like another one chalked up to us not developing our players. That's all. And we're just like not thinking far ahead in advance either. Like we already know that we're probably not gonna have Zoe back this season, but we're not developing Dalen either. We picked him up in the draft. He's a point guard. His player profile looks kind of similar to Zoe. Obviously, he needs a lot of work for sure. He still needs to work on his shot, but he's got a very similar profile, but we don't give him any good minutes. We give him the garbage minutes last minute after a very decided game. Again, it all goes back to the same thing. And I've never put it all on Billy or coaching. It's a culmination of things. But it's also lacking discipline, which it's kind of the same conversation we have almost every episode, just undisciplined. And it's unfortunate because, again, we know what we have. We know what they got. We know what they can do, but they just completely lose all composure and just do what they normally do. And again, I'm saying what I already said, but that goes back to leadership again. Like we just need a leader. We need somebody to just rally the troops back in, and we got to get it together. It's so many different things involved, but can be done.
Yeah, just like looking at this team coming in, because like the Bulls were coming up, like they're doing that back to back. I would think that given the way the roster is, with Zach having the injury with his hand, you don't have Goran, at your disposal. Javonte is hurt. You have that opportunity to jump on a young team who is struggling. I would have thought that once you see that lead, or like at least you plan for it in your head, hey, if we jump on this team like right away, let me give some of my younger players some extra run, because my players who are the veterans have been playing extended minutes. Plus, we're coming off of that Paris trip. Let me give them some run to give them some in-game action, like to expose them and get them used to like the rigors of an NBA season, like legitimate minutes, carved out time that I'm specifically going to use that time to develop them and get them some in-game action. And we just didn't see it. And I was thinking at some point with that lead, I was like, if I was like coaching this team or whatever, I'd been like, I'm going to give Dalen like 8 minutes at some point in this game, depending on how the game like manages itself. And I thought there would have been a golden opportunity for them to kind of weave him in there just a little bit, given the fact that you were missing these guys who are responsible for providing energy, responsible for communicating, just giving him that in-game action. And unfortunately, there's like another wasted opportunity where they didn't take advantage of that chance to do that. Hopefully that's something that changes moving forward. But with what is going on this year, who knows when that's going to happen?
It's not. It's been 3 years for Marco.
Yeah, I mean, the opportunities are starting to become slim at this point. I mean, I was looking at the calendar today. I mean, we're almost at February, and statistically, we're already beyond the half point of the season. We'll hit the All-Star game, and then you're really not going to get much run out of them for this season at this point.
Yeah, he's going to get more run. He better hope the Windy City Bulls make the playoffs in the G League, or he's just going to be on the bench.
A thought just popped in my head too about what you just said, Just. Even last night, like, if nothing else, like throwing DT in there for a couple minutes, that probably would have been a good thing in retrospect, just to give honestly a different look that the Pacers needed to defend. Throw him, like, why not throw him in there just to throw the other team off at some point, like, because we all sit here and we watch. I think for all of us collectively here, as many Bulls games as we watch, I think we know what the patterns are. We know what to expect from that roster as far as like who's coming in, who's going to be, running with the rock for a minute. We're just fans, right? We kind of see, we can predict to a degree, like what the Bulls are going to do in a game. Like, and if we can do that, I would like to think that an actual NBA team with a scouting department, they got something in that report that says, oh yeah, like, you know, at this minute mark in the second quarter, this is what Billy's going to do. So let's just go ahead and do that and then shut them down and throw them off for the whole second half. Like, I'm just saying, like, maybe throw in some wrinkles there, like keep the defense honest at some point. And that could be DT, perhaps.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you because I texted you guys when we had that lead. I was like, oh, look, we're playing through Vooch. In my head, I'm thinking, and they're going to stop in the second half. But I didn't text that guy to you because I did not want to jinx it, but it happened anyway. I'm like, hell, knew this is going to happen. Let's go away from what's working. And like both of you guys' points, we're building this lead on the second end of a back of the back. You could have thrown Dalen out there. You could have thrown Marco out there because if they lose that lead, you're like, okay, they were trying to give the young guys some run. You can put the starters back in and kind of like right the ship. You would be that would be acceptable with like pretty much everybody because like, oh, okay, well, sleep what the young guys can do because we need to develop them. All right, they lost the lead, they got to learn. Bring the other guys back in. To see your star players out there and they're the ones that's just losing this lead. And it's like, here we go again. Because it's not acceptable at this point in the season that you're relying on the same players and the same thing is just happening over and over again, where we're building these big leads and just letting them slip all the way away with the guys that you're so determined to play and you're not giving other guys on the team opportunity. I mean, did they think that the Pacers were just going to wave the white flag after halftime? It's the NBA. These guys have pride. They're competitors. You're playing a team that's on a 7-game losing streak. They're not just going to accept, well, it's about to be 8 tonight. No, they want to snap that streak. They were hungrier. You had some players on your bench that probably was hungrier than the guys that you were playing because they don't get any time. So, of course, they're hungry to prove themselves. So it would have been a good idea to just give Dalen a few minutes, give Marco a few minutes. Instead, nope, let's stick to the same old rotation and let's just go ISO in the second half. Why is this guy still the coach and why did they give him a secret extension? Next, they're going to say that they secretly gave Vooch an extension before the All-Star break.
Tony Bradley is going to be the one that's on our roster the longest.
You know, the funny thing with this game, like even with the way it turned out, Bulls still had every opportunity to win this game. You know, if they make a couple of more 3-point, you can't go 5 of 24. I was looking at their starters, and I'm like, dude, your starters were like something like what, 3 of 15 from 3-point range? Like, come on, man. Like, you can't have that. But like what Morris was saying, you know, give them the other team a different look. The Bulls don't dictate terms to other teams. They just, you know, they are a reactionary team. They're not a response team. You know, like you guys, like, I was talking to my students, like, about how you need to understand the difference between reacting to a situation and responding to a situation. And I used like the example of the Avengers, because they all know about the Avengers, they've seen the movie. And I said, you remember when I think it was like Doctor Strange, you know, like he's like going through all of the different things that could possibly go wrong with the Thanos invasion and everything. I said, he's trying to think of the correct response so that he can be what? And they were like, successful. I said, yes. Trying to be successful based off of the response. You're not just reacting. Because like the other guys on the team, they just wanted to react to things. But you can't just react to whatever situation that comes up. But that's what I find this Bulls team doing. They are a reactionary team. They're not a response team. And yes, we can put that on the players because they need to have better, basketball IQ. But you also need to have a plan. You can't just go up in there like you were saying before. Yeah, this team is hungry. Teams that playing at home, like they're rested. What do you think that they're going to be doing? Do you think that they don't want to get into the playoffs too? Yes, they want to get into the playoffs too. They were playing exceptionally well with Halliburton when he was healthy. They're not just going to like give them that. And plus, they have an NBA coach who has won a championship. You think that Rick Carlisle is just going to be like, all right, guys, you know what? They built a 20-point lead on us, so let's just move on to the next game. No, they responded, and they didn't even do much of like shooting exceptionally well. They just, as Billy said, brought up their intensity. I'm like, well, they bring up their intensity. Why can't you bring up your intensity and go past their intensity? So I don't know.
A good example on the other side with the Pacers too last night about dictating things or just like bringing different wrinkles and things just to like basically throw the Bulls off the game. Like when they did that hacker drumming, like it just like I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I just felt like that completely shut the Bulls down. Like I think that everybody was genuinely like, what is this? It just seemed like it was, and maybe, like I mean, I probably will look at that clip again, like just look at some of those clips. But like in the moment, I just remember feeling like this is weird. Like I didn't know coaches were still doing that. But it's one of those things where it's like I think about it. I thought about today, like it's smart because it's like you putting a low risk dude on the free throw line. You're slowing the game down. You're giving your team the opportunity to get back in the game, which is exactly what they did. Like that's the kind of stuff where it's like, to Justin's point, like, when you have a well-seasoned, like very experienced, like deep championship winning coach, like you have to be ready for that kind of stuff. And the Bulls just didn't look ready for it.
As soon as he said Rick Carlisle's name, the first thing that came to my mind was this man played hacker drumming. And not on like they got it to where they fouled him off the ball and we got the ball back and Zach got to shoot the free throw instead of Drummond. But it messed Billy up so much, he took Drummond out and never put him back in the game. It's like, I don't know what he's going to do with that. Nope, can't play Drummond anymore tonight. It's like, you were thoroughly outcoached just on that. Just on him telling his players to foul your guy. You got outcoached by that.
In my mind, like Billy is going to his assistants like, wait, is this legal? Like, can they do this? I've never seen anything like this before. But yes. Like that, those are the types of things, like, of course it's a players' league. Players have to perform. But like you have like those coaches who are going to win you somewhere between 5 to 10 games, like in that range, just off of some key decisions that they are making, substitution patterns, something to throw a team off. And this Bulls team is easily distracted. They are like the ADHD team of the NBA. Oh, yeah, the attention span of a gnat, as my grandmother used to say. So
it's definitely coaching. It's definitely a lot to do with coaching. It's he has a very limited tool set. So it's like something doesn't go the way he planned and there's like no backup plan. Just like and everything malfunctions and shuts down. And like, what does a coach do? What does a leader do? Like, you're supposed to bring the best out of all your people. All of the, you're supposed to bring all your people up. You're supposed to find what this person does best, what this person is not so great at, improve that, and we build off of this person's strength. And we don't do much of that either. I mean, this is nothing new. I feel, and I say this all the time, I feel like we talk about the same things all the time because it really is just it's the same thing, unfortunately, all the time. But
it's fascinating to talk about it though, because it's like you see what you need to change.
Exactly. That's why it's so frustrating, and that's why I have been a lot more quiet the last few episodes, because I'm like, I have nothing else more I can say. Like the being undisciplined part of it, like that's also part of being a leader. It's part of being a coach. It's part of being a manager. Like you bring everybody back in. Like that's what you do. You're supposed to lead the ship. You're the captain. But no, everything just completely malfunctions, shuts down, and we get that's why we are Jekyll and Hyde. Like we're cool in the first quarter, and then something just doesn't go how we want it to, or it's going great the first half, and then third quarter, completely different team, and we don't know what to do. We don't know what to do anymore.
I would love to be
Billy effect. Billy is turning a normally very talkative person, turning them into a mute. Thank you, Billy. We appreciate the far-reaching effects that you have past the Bulls organization into this podcast to dictate what we will talk about.
I would just love to be a fly on the wall. Like, what is Billy saying in the film room? Like when you obviously have to review just like a pathetic collapse like that. Like what is the conversation about? Yeah, because I feel like it's gotta be even more quiet when you have to look at that on the screen. Like there should be somebody like getting pretty loud about that, or at least like being like real straight to the point, like, hey, we can't do that kind of stuff anymore. Like something has to change. Like, yeah, like you just wonder, like, are they just like
Morris,
doing shadow puppets in the film room? Like, what is going on?
We've actually talked about this before, like about the film. Like, do they even watch film? Like,
Morris, you'd be the first fly to die from silence because Billy doesn't have anything that he's saying. But Stacey did say something. Like the funny thing is, like the Bulls totally threw off. Like I don't know if it threw you off. It threw me off because this Bulls team in that first half was unlike anything that I had seen the entire year. Like the communication, the rotating on defense, the sharing of the ball. I even tweeted out that there was a play out of a timeout that was perfectly executed underneath our basket that I had not seen, like, and I don't know how many years. I had never seen them execute a play like that where like they got it right. I forget who got the dunk. It was like either a Drummond dunk or I think it was Derrick Jones.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, so it's baseline out of bounds. And I tweeted that too, because Zach screamed for Vooch, and then Vooch got that clean dunk. I think that's what you're talking about.
I'm not sure. I think it might have been that, but I just remember it, like it was so great that I can't even like recall like the exact moments of it because I was like so in awe. I was like, wait, did that just happen? Like, and I was about to go back and rewind it, but I got distracted because I didn't recognize what it is that I had just seen. It's like I was like Billy in the moment where the hack of Drummond, like, wait, is this really happening? But like that's the thing, is like what Melissa was talking about, is like Jekyll and Hyde with this team. This was like the perfect example of a Jekyll and Hyde moment with this team, as we've seen throughout the entire year. But it is fascinating to see a team recognize what they are doing that is wrong and what they need to do to make things right, and still continue down the path of, oh, this is working, let's try something different.
Yeah, you made me go back to my game thread from last night. Yeah, it's funny. So so I tweeted about that baseline outbound play, and then right before that, I tweeted, "The Bulls are playing normal basketball. I'm happy, like because that I was totally there too. I'm like, something is weird. Like these Bulls are playing like way too normal."
Never be
Like,
too
until
sure.
something went wrong,
Yeah.
then they're like, "Hey, that wasn't supposed to happen, Billy," and he's just like, I don't know, but I mean, I didn't plan for that. That wasn't supposed to happen."
Yeah.
I'm just as surprised as you were.
The positive tweets are never safe. any positive
No.
tweets you have in the first half, they're never safe. Just know that. I saw somebody on the timeline. I quoted him. It was like I saw it way after the game was over, and it was like, "There's no way they're gonna come back," or something like that. "There's no way the Pacers are gonna come back from this. Like, Bulls are whatever." He was like sure they were gonna win, and it made me so sad because I'm like, it made me sad all over again because it was like 2 hours after I was done watching the game, and I'm like, man, what are they doing to us? Like, what are they doing to us? Poor guy.
Yeah. Another thing that I saw that was funny was even with Zach playing poorly, because he didn't shoot the ball well in either half, but they seemed like they were genuinely having fun playing that style of basketball. Like, that's what I don't understand. Like, hey, you know what? It's fun when you get to touch the ball just as much as everybody else. Like, it's not just going to be designed with a DeMar or a Zach ISO. And they seem to not just be having fun, like scoring the ball, but actually passing the ball. Like, I saw genuine happiness on the faces of this team that I did not recognize. That's what it was like. I felt like I was like in a bizarro world, where all of these things were happening. And I'm like, I don't recognize this team. And I was happy. And, I haven't been genuinely happy with what this team has been doing this year. But like, did you all feel like you were like in some kind of like time warp or something? Like what are you watching with that first half?
Yeah, definitely. Seeing
Yes.
that ball movement and stuff, like things that we always ask for, basically fundamental basketball. We're the basics, like effort on defense, moving the ball, off ball movements, setting screens, all that. And we ended up with like 19 assists, I think, for the whole game, because who knows where everything went after the second half, after the first half. But yeah, it was a nice first half. We've had some nice first halves here and there. It's just the third quarter, again, completely different team in the third quarter. We love those third quarters. We love them. That's usually when I pick up my chair. I pick up the chair at the third quarter, so I'm ready to like either whip it across the room or place it back down gently and have a seat. But I'm usually standing with my chair in hand by the third quarter.
Yeah, the first half was it was basically a Michael Myers movie before he shows up and starts, slashing people. That was what the first half, like, like you could play that kind of soundtrack where it's like, oh, it's way too calm, it's way too nice, we're having a good time. Then everybody's dead.
Exactly.
The second half is when everybody dies.
That is the most perfect way to describe. That is the most perfect way to describe it. Like, it's coming. Like, it's too good right now. It's too quiet.
Yeah.
We're enjoying this too much. Yeah. That was perfect.
The first half, like, Paris was good for this team. Like, you got their chemistry right. They're playing good. They won Paris. They came home. They beat the Hawks. Good game. They're playing like this in the first quarter. Maybe we're going to see some consistency. Second half, they're just like, gotcha. And it's the same stuff that we've been seeing. And it's like, it reminded me of Infinity War. Like when the Hulk just comes in, he's smashing everybody and he gets to Thanos and Thanos just lays him out and he refuses to come out. Just like, that's what the Bulls did. They got beat down and they refused to come back out after that.
Yeah, I don't think we're ever going to really understand this team. I mean, we beat Golden State. I got to go to that game. Here we go with the Pacers. Just, I don't think we'll ever understand the team. And you know what?
Yeah. Infinity War, and then we're all like sitting around like in game at the beginning of the movie talking about the good old days, picking up the pieces and moving on.
The good old days of the first half.
Yeah.
The first half, when we were playing basketball. Those are the days.
I did have a pregame thought before the game last night, and I think it proved to be kind of accurate. Basically, like I thought last night was going to be a pretty big gut check for the Bulls defense because of how good they played defense against the Hawks. Coming off that Paris game as well. And I think that's just unfortunately like what sort of got exposed last night too is for a variety of reasons that we've been talking about, like. You can't bank on the Bulls like going beyond a 3-game span and doing like the right thing beyond we're lucky if they get these 3-game streaks, but it's like I feel like something is going to unravel after that 3rd game. That seems like a consistent pattern this season.
And you can also bring that back to your Michael Myers analogy, the 3-game stretch, and we hit the 4th game. There goes the music. Cue it.
Yeah.
Is there any way we could get like talk to the people in the Bulls, like talk to Stacey or somebody, like have them play that music? The Bulls start losing leads like that.
I will lose it. They start. Just somebody needs to get the drop. They're funny people too. Like somebody, like hopefully NBC Sports, please, just for me, just once, one drop of the Michael Myers music.
I can see Stacey and Adam like humming. Try to get them that idea. Man, it's like, what can we do to fix this team? And Morris, I know you have like a thread on Twitter of how to build the Bulls back into a contender.
Yes.
You want to touch on it a little bit?
Yeah, one of the things, like, because I mean, watching so much of this season and just like, I think like any fan just like not being all that thrilled, honestly, with what we've seen on the court this year. Like I'd like to be a realist about most things related to the Bulls, and I definitely don't think that like if we make the playoffs, I think that would be a punching above our weight this season, honestly. And like what I'm thinking about at this point is like salvage whatever you can get out of the season and do some like ideally you would hope the front office can do some sound management things. Read into that, like don't be cheap this offseason. And do some things to start building a coherent roster that continues to evolve from where the success we had last season. Because I think there were some good positive things despite like Lonzo being injured, and you can build upon this. One of the things that I think like the high level summary of like what I talked about in that thread, please read it, everyone. It's a wonderful thread, long thread, but good thread. I think like we've hit the limitations on like what we can truly expect of like the quote unquote the big 3. It's a roster model where like honestly you're not even seeing it that much in the NBA anymore. I think it's something where like we need to like and I'm saying we like me pretending I'm Acme. We have to think about like what is next for this Bulls roster. And I think you have 3 pieces that on their own individual like playing or like playing field or whatever. They are great players. Like you can't deny that. Like Vooch on his own proved against Golden State. Like you can do some awesome things with Vooch. DeMar on his own in like certain matchups, certain games, like he does great stuff. Zach too. But you've seen now without the aid of a competent point guard like Alonzo Ball, it's really hard to get like consistent, simple offense out of those 3 guys. Like the idea, the premise I propose, at least at this point, is if I'm retooling the Bulls and like that's sort of my mindset, like I'm not a blow up kind of person. I think it would be great if the front office could figure out just land on one star and sort of build around a star with a lot of good, confident role players. I think that's really like the next stage the Bulls should go. I think that accomplishes two things. One, it just makes for me, I want to see a more simplified offense. Like just get something where like you know what to expect every night, and like we've been talking about, every man on that roster can have a for sure defined role, and we know who the star is. And at the same time, it's not like this clunky thing where it's like you have to keep sort of toggling between like who's going to be the man tonight. Like get to one star, because you see that so much in like very competitive teams, maybe not necessarily title contenders, but you look at a Mavs, you look at even like a Sixers team, even though they have Harden, it's still Embiid's team. It's going to be Embiid's team no matter what. Once we get to like later in the season, you've had these teams where like I think like the NBA speak is like these are heliocentric teams. Their rosters revolve around one star. I would love to see the Bulls get to something like that. You could potentially do that with Zach also. Like honestly, if Vooch and DeMar aren't here long term, that's what I would love to see happen with Vooch and DeMar. Like I don't need a star for star return on those guys. Like bring back like competent. Like to me, just bring back a whole roster full of wings for both Vooch and DeMar, and let's see what we can do. That's kind of like what my thoughts are, and like the long thread I did about like how do you make the Bulls a title contender in the long run? And I think it's just like it's not sexy, it's not pretty kind of transformation, but I think it's something where like if the front office is really smart and truly about their word as far as like making a winner happen, a contender happen, they have to. I think it just has to be continual incremental things every season to build this team up over time and truly like realize that vision they have of continuity. I think that's what you've also seen with like the Boston Celtics over these years. Because I mean, just like a season or two ago, people were like very much on that blow up train about like, oh, the Jays can't play together ever. But like they've stuck with it, and they've gone through ups and downs. They've had trade backfire on them with Kyrie Irving, and it's just like I think there's a way like the Bulls can go about this if they're smart and they're committed to truly like improving this roster where like we can't get to where we as all Bulls fans want to be at some point. It's just I think it requires like a plan, honestly, at this point, and just being honest with what sort of roster you have and what changes you can make. The thing that just happened this past off season can't happen again, basically.
Yeah. That's been like you said, like the Celtics having a trade backfire with Kyrie Irving, and they moved on from him, and it's almost like the trade for Vooch kind of backfired a little bit, and I don't think that they want to admit that, and that's why Vooch is still going to be here past the trade deadline, because they don't want to admit, we kind of messed up with that one. And instead of seeing what they can get for him, they're like, we gave up too much for him, so we're going to ride it out with him. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think that, there needs to be a plan, and you paid Zach the max, the most highest contract that the Bulls have ever given out. So if you're going to build around Zach, you need to get players to complement him and build around them. So definitely check out Moritz's trend on that on Twitter. It's a good read.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. Hopefully we can see some better roster moves. Honestly, it's starting with this trade deadline. I don't think it can wait until the offseason. Like some things have to change pretty much ASAP. Because I don't have a lot of confidence in the way this current roster is structured.
Yeah, especially if it doesn't look like Lonzo will be back this season at all. So I don't even. But we got the Hornets tomorrow. Who was a trash team, and we have problems beating trash teams. So
We should pretend the Hornets are, in fact, the Boston Celtics.
I gotta go and look at that thread too, Morris. But I think that the Bulls could solve some of their problems by just playing good teams now. Like, because we seem to do well with good teams. Like, that's the thing. Like, it's interesting. You brought up like the roster construction and like with this team is going as far as we believe that it can go, because we see how the Bulls have played against some of the top teams in the NBA, and it's not like we see that there is such a disparity between what they have now versus who they're going up against. I don't know how that would work in the playoffs, but I'd be interested if the Bulls just like had to go up against a bunch of teams who were like above 500 the rest of the way. What would that solve everything for the Bulls and give them the mentality that they need going forward? Probably not, because Billy's there, but it would just be an interesting case study.
Yeah, the Bulls just become like the ultimate spoilers.
So yeah, we finish out this week with the Hornets and then the Orlando Magic.
0-2.
Yeah, I won't bet against that. I won't argue that.
I mean, if we're going off of team tendencies, right? Like,
Is Wendell going to be back and gassed up again? I mean, pretty much that seems to be like the MO.
I was going 1-1. I don't think we lose to the Hornets, but Wendell loves playing against us.
Wait, didn't the Hornets just beat somebody? I thought they might have just beaten the Hawks or something like that.
It's possible. The thing I might be worried about tomorrow, honestly, because I've seen a couple of minutes of some Hornets games lately on League Pass. Mason Plumlee all of a sudden he's looking like baby Jokic or something. Like Mason Plumlee all of a sudden is just like getting to the rim and just like doing all kinds of stuff all over the court. Like that's what I'm afraid of, like Plumlee doing some crazy stuff against us tomorrow that he shouldn't be doing, but because it's us, get like a 30-point Plumlee game.
Are we gonna have a Plumlee breakout game? Who is going to be the underrated player that has a breakout game versus us tomorrow night?
I'm like, now that you mentioned it, last week, a couple of my players on fantasy were like out with injury, so I'm looking at a player to pick up while they're out. Look at Mason Plumlee's numbers. I'm like, what in the world? Picked him right on up.
What?
So it would not surprise me if
you might need to check Plumlee. Like Plumlee might be juicing.
I don't know. I'm just going to go 1-1 here.
Magic are beating Indiana right now. I think the Magic just beat Boston, didn't they? Like it was like a game or a night ago.
Yeah, the Magic is the one in the L column that I'm giving just.
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, we can't lose to the Hornets after blowing the 21-point leads to the Pacers.
Where are we playing?
We can, but these are both road games.
Road games? That's possible.
Yeah, it's possible. The Bulls are innovative. Can't count the Bulls out.
That's the thing. Like the confidence is less and less and less with these predictions as the weeks go. Before I was like 2-1, 2-0, but now I'm like, man, I really don't know. There's like no logic to be applied to this situation. Well,
yeah.
I'll just go 1-1. I'll go 1-1. I'll go 1-1.
I'm sticking. Yeah, I'm sorry.
so many guys on this team for the Hornets I do not recognize. It's like Plumlee and Scary Terry. Like that's all I recognize on this team. Like, it's a bunch of guys that are just like fringe NBA players and cast-offs, and I have a feeling that we will have a hard time putting them away.
LaMelo's still out,
a bunch
right?
of guys that can go off on us is what you're saying.
Yeah.
No, you
Is
mentioned Scary Terry. Yeah, he's going to be scary tomorrow because like that's the MO recipe for like how we get cooked is somebody who ordinarily is not hitting the shot. All of a sudden, Scary Terry is going to look like what 2017 Terry or whenever he was on the Celtics.
Dennis Smith Jr. Like,
Is LaMelo still out?
yeah.
Okay. Hayward is questionable. Got PJ Washington. Need to, print out some pictures of Brittany Renner and throw him off his game. And maybe Booch can feast off of that. I don't know. I'm just hopeful that we at least get one win in between these two games.
If you want to know like how like if you want to like get a good idea, like just look at the odds. Like Vegas has Chicago at a -5.5. So that should not be that low considering who is missing from the Charlotte Hornets, but Vegas knows.
Unless the refs decide they want to reset the odds.
Oh man. So yeah, hopefully we can get a win somewhere in these two games. Monday we play the Clippers, which is probably a win because they're a good team.
Actually, they're not. They've been like reeling.
Then that just changes the odds.
Over the next 3 games, yeah, we should win a game, if nothing else, only because of statistics, not because like we're going to do something better, probably, but stats say we're going to win a game.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much the show for this week. Morse, thank you for coming on. You want to
My pleasure.
Tell the people your Twitter handle so they can check out your trends?
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at Mobanks10. That's MOBANKS10. I usually live tweet the Bulls games and try to throw in some other like content in the mix. Yeah, definitely like the longer thread about how the Bulls become a title contender, sort of a long form thing there, just to like provoke some thought on the Bulls, and then some other fun entertaining stuff. Again, yeah, definitely every morning I'm waking up Bulls Nation, making sure they know how much Pat knows how to cook. So check out that hashtag Jason Tatum's Angles menu as well.
All right. And until the next time, go Bulls.
Go
Go
Bulls.
Bulls.
Go Bulls.
Then it's game over. The horn blows.